So welcome to Privacy and Security Creepathon, The Results, a session showcasing the work of students at CODAM Coding College in Amsterdam who participated in a Creepathon event at Mozilla last year. The Creepathon, which is basically a hackathon, with the challenge to find creepy information in the data set they were provided with one major goal: to make user privacy the default. The challenge was to use creative storytelling alongside data to show people how exposed they could be in their favorite apps. Today, we are joined by the winners. Naomi, Griffin Reed, Timon Alvaradi. Welcome to MozFest 2021. We're so happy to have you here. Please introduce yourselves to the world and tell us what got you interested in joining the Creepathon in the first place. We'll start with you, Naomi.
What got me in particular interested in the Creepathon is that I had just started at CODAM. This seemed like a really safe environment to do it because it was in-house, and I was excited to work in a team and to learn from my peers.
Hi, I'm Griffin. I'm from California, and I have a great interest in cybersecurity, so that seemed like a nice starting point.
Hi, I'm Timon. I'm 26. I have a background in philosophy and economics. When I joined the hackathon, I was only a student at CODAM for a month, and I liked it a lot because it made me really feel like a detective.
Great. So before we get into your session, I would really love to hear a little bit more about your school. I hear there are no teachers, no classes, no courses. Naomi, can you please tell us a little bit about this innovative peer-to-peer educational model that you're studying within?
It's like your regular schools have, it's all peer-to-peer, so you really learn from your schoolmates. You learn by making mistakes, so it's also set up that you're gonna make mistakes, and it's about learning from it. It's really inclusive. You don't need to have any type of diploma to start. You don't need to have any type of experience with coding. Like Timon said, he's from philosophy and economics. I myself have a psychology background, and we both are accepted with open arms and have already in, what is it, like 6 months, learned so much from our peers. So it's a really good model.
It sounds like a model for the future. So now we're going to kick off, and we're going to start with you, Naomi. Please show us Team Foxmosta's winning presentation. And as she sets up, I just want the audience to know that we will be monitoring the chat in this room as well as comments on YouTube. So if you have any questions during her presentation, please feel free to ask them and we will present them to Naomi. Naomi, take it away.
Thank you. All right. Every day we post information about ourselves online. Maybe you just got a promotion at work, so you update your LinkedIn profile. Or you have an old couch to sell, you want to get rid of it, so you log into eBay and you place an ad. Maybe today you wake up, find yourself looking especially cute, or your pet looking especially cute, and you want to post that on Instagram. Or you go to a bar with your friends, you buy the beer, and you pay using Venmo. Suppose your name is Paul. You're walking across the street with your date. You had a wonderful date, you just had ice cream together, everything is going super, super well. You try to get the courage to hold their hand, and as your hand goes towards their hand draws away, points towards the sky, you follow it with your eyes, and you see this billboard. I'm Paul Simpson. In August, I had 8 dates with Becky Lassard and 2 with Molly Johnson. Want to know more? Check my Venmo. And on the bottom of the billboard, it says, exposed by Venmo. Now, if you're Paul, this isn't necessarily super invasive information, but if I were Paul and I would see this on the street, I would be freaked out. Now, suppose your name is Justin Torres. You're a super sociable guy. You have loads of friends, you go to sports bars, maybe you invite them home, check out your sports memorabilia. You two are walking along the street, you're gonna see some friends, and you see this billboard, much bigger than the other billboard, Paul's billboard. Your billboard says, I'm Justin C. Torres. I work at Visa, my passion is sports, my favorite bar is Mickey Sports Bar. It gets worse. You can reach me on my private phone number if I'm not at home at my home address. And it's your actual phone number, it's your actual home address. And then it says, don't mention my felony for vandalism to my parents, Julio and Fatima. Another campaign, same, exposed by Venmo. It says, don't find your data on the street, check your privacy settings. We made these fake billboards with real data that we found as a starting point in Venmo's public API. This is how public their data is, and we wonder, if they saw these billboards in real life, how would they feel? So how did we do this? How did we get this massive, invasive bits of information about these people using this public data set that only has to do with these finances? How did we get all this other stuff? Every transaction in Venmo's public API has certain variables. The key variables for us were the notes, merchant name, username, and last name. Now, why were these important? We wanted to get as much information as possible, but varied types of information, so that we could try to get a global picture of somebody. So what we did is we scoured the database. We found the people that had the most transactions. Then we checked these variables, these 4 variables. So for the first more innocent case, Paul Simpson, we did it all just using the notes. His was a love story, a nice story. He found a woman stronger than anybody he knows, really enjoyed the date, hopes to see them again soon, and simply cannot stay away. A love story, a match made in heaven, right? Maybe not. The next case, user 2, Justin Torres. Now this one is where it gets more creepy. What we did here is we had several transactions, and the one that we used, we got the most information from, is a version of the one you see on screen. Now obviously all the names are false, by the way. We changed them. So what we see here is we see that the user, he goes by the username JustTor, and the actual display name is Justin Torres. Here, as I mentioned before, one of the things we looked for was a merchant name. Now, why do we want to know the merchant name? Because we want to find out where they live. We want to find out more, how do we locate this person and isolate them from all the other Justin Torreses around the world? If we type Justin Torres into Google, we probably won't find his home address immediately because people don't post that. Companies post their addresses because they want customers. So that's what we did. We took Mickey Sports Bar, we Googled it, and we found that it's in San Diego, California. So that's good. Now we have a little bit more information. Justin Torres, likes sports, goes to San Diego. So now the next step, Google. From very, very, very stalkery Googling. We Googled the username in combination with the state. The username instead of the actual name, because there are, I want to say dozens, but there's way more, thousands of Justin Torreses online. The username, though, is more specific. We want to see, does he use this username across platforms? Can we find this user? And we did. So first we find an Instagram post, some Instagram things. We find items for sale with a username that's almost the same, almost exactly the same, and another item for sale from the same user, JustTor7. What's important here, you can't see that with the clicker. In the second and third search result, you'll see an extra location, La Mesa. So we wondered, okay, let's Google that too. Let's see if this JustTor is the same JustTor from our public data set. Let's see where La Mesa is. So we Googled it, it's here. And if this picture seems familiar to you, it's because it's almost exactly the same picture that I showed you earlier when I showed you Mickey Sports Bar. That's right over here. So that's good. It seems like this person is indeed our Justin Torres, but still, it's not creepy enough, right? So let's go on. let's take La Mesa, Mickey Sports Bar, and let's take this information, Ben Floor, because we had two actors here. We have the person who received the money, the person who paid the money. Let's Google Ben Floor as well, in California. We find a LinkedIn page. Note that this Ben Floor went to San Diego State University, so again, right, that's something, hey, that's the same. This might be the same person. Now we have more information. A lot of Googling was involved, you guys. A lot of Googling was involved. So we go on. By Googling Ben Floor and California and Justin Torres, we come across this LinkedIn page. Now, it seems like this is just exactly what we already know, but it's not. Okay, you can't see this, I'm clicking with my pointer, but in Justin Torres' picture, look below his name and check out the location. La Mesa, just like ours, just like Just Tour 7, who sell the sportswear, who really like sports. Also, now, we have an extra letter, Justin C. Tours. I don't know what the C stands for, but it's that little extra bit of information that makes it more likely for us to find him. Now comes the really scary part. With this information, Justin Torres, La Mesa, California, we were able to find lots of public records. We found his home address, so I'm not showing you the website, the exact website right now, because even this, like getting all the identifiable information out of there. But when we click this page, we found his parents, his home address, his telephone number, his criminal court records, his felonies, all of that we found online. It's all out there. And we found it in under 12 hours for people who hadn't done this before. And that's really shocking. I'm pretty sure Justin would not like this at all. I know I wouldn't. So what do we do? How do we prevent this? There are two recommendations that we make. One is for Venmo, but we realize that Venmo might not immediately pick up on all recommendations that we give. The other one is for the users. Let's start off with Venmo. What Venmo could do is leave notes out of the public API, don't publish them, or if they must publish them separately, not linked to username or user ID. Try to really get these bits of information further apart, have them not be linked together. Same here, publish the display name only and not the username. In the case of Justin Torres, where we found his home address, his phone number, all of that stuff, it was the username, not his actual name, that made it possible for us to find all of this. So what can users do? I kind of already foreshadowed. Don't use the same username across platforms. You know, most people don't post information about their dates on LinkedIn. They don't post their home address on their Instagram. But they do use the same username for LinkedIn, for instance, for Instagram, for all these other platforms. So basically, you are putting all these bits of information out there with the same username, making it very easy, actually, for people to find all of this stuff about you. So even something like that could really make a very big difference. So having said that, we also have LinkedIn. You have seen my face already. My name is Naomi. I want to introduce you to my lovely teammates. We have Hilmi, Beer, and Sam. So look us up, connect with us, and we'd love to hear from you.
That was a brilliant presentation, Naomi. I can see why your team won the Creepathon. So we're getting a few questions. My first is, what do you think that the average user can do to protect themselves online? So you mentioned not using the same name across platforms, but at the same time, a lot of people will say for personal branding and to be found on the internet. So just like you're saying, we should connect with you, on LinkedIn, a lot of people want to connect with others on the internet. So how do you think your generation can balance that desire to be well branded online and at the same time maintain their privacy?
It's a difficult one also. Also because using the same username is just very useful. I do it too, but not for long. I think that changing your username doesn't necessarily impact the branding all that much as long as you keep your own name on there. But I can see, let's say you are an artist, then probably you do want to have the same username everywhere. In that case, I think my recommendation would be to have your personal usernames, your personal stuff, and the stuff that you do for your online presence, for branding, to have them separately. It's a difficult, situation.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult one. And I think it's a trade-off that our generations are going to have to make at some point. Thank you so much, Naomi, for your presentation. We're going to move now to the other winning team, Operation Anonymous, represented by Griffin Reed and Taiman El Baradi.
Alrighty. Victoria? Oh, sound. Yeah. I'm just going to quickly set the stage here. You wake up in the morning, it's a beautiful morning, and you're making your first cup of coffee. You go to check your phone to see what kind of emails came through overnight, and it hits you. The first email you see has a subject, "We know you have a foot fetish. Does your mother know?" This stops you in your tracks. Don't know. Your deepest, darkest secret that you don't tell your parents, don't tell your best friend, don't tell anyone. Someone else knows it. Is it random? I don't know. So you open the email and you read it. The first subject, the first paragraph, it reads, "We know you bought these photos, these 3 photos, from these sellers on these days for this amount of money." You freak out a little bit, but you keep reading. The next paragraph, it has your mother's LinkedIn account, her Facebook, and her email address. Your employer's LinkedIn, his email address. And then the next paragraph follows up with a Bitcoin address and a note saying, "Within 24 hours, if you don't pay this amount of money to this address, we will expose you to the people that we linked inside of this email."
Described could very well be reality. In fact, it's a much more attainable reality than you might think, and that's thanks to the public API from Venmo. But first, let me introduce ourselves. This is Griffin, I'm Tijmen. Late November, we teamed up with Victor and Thijs to join in the Creepathon. And in that Creepathon, we explored the Venmo dataset for feet. Specifically, we identified over 300 transactions of feet pics, or actually transactions that mentioned feet pics. Feet pics are, of course, highly desirable by foot fetishists. Why did we pick feet pics as our search term? We did so because, we wanted to keep it lighthearted, but of course we all understand that sexuality and this matter is something that should be very private and is very personal, and it's not something you want out in the open. So how did we find over 300 transactions mentioning feet pics? We did so by looking again at the payment note, just like Naomi did. We filtered the database looking for the phrase feet pics, but also looking for a foot emoji paired with a camera emoji, or a foot emoji paired with like a kissy emoji, or just, actually, I'll show you some examples later. We wanted to keep it lighthearted, so here are the examples. They're also a bit more fun. These are some of the notes we found in the data set. I'll read them out to you. This one, that thing you do with your feet, or your feet pics, or the classic foot emoji followed by a tongue emoji. We also found more fun stuff in the data set, at least fun for us. We identified the top feet tycoon named Shu with over 5 sales. We also identified the top feet lover, Josh, with 3 feet pic purchases. Of course, to us this might seem funny, but these people actually exist. So we decided to focus and zoom in on Josh. And we found a lot of info on Josh. We found Josh's full name, last name included. We found his phone number. We got his email, all in the Venmo data set. We even found, a profile picture. The picture you see here is a fake photo of a non-existent person, but we found an actual picture of this Josh. And our next step was DuckDuckGoing this information, his name, and cross-referencing this information. And within a minute, we found him on several social media platforms. We found his Instagram, we found his LinkedIn, and we found his Facebook account, with there also a link to Josh's mom's Facebook account. We did this very quickly, and Josh is probably very lucky that this information fell in our hands and not in the hands of a bad guy who could abuse all of this info. So what should Josh do? Or what should Josh have done? Or perhaps better yet also, what should you do? Well, a lawyer would tell you, read the terms and conditions of every app you use. But that seems highly impractical, and I'm no expert and definitely not a lawyer, but I tell you, just be aware of everything you put out there. Assume every company is out there to collect your data, and please set your account to private if possible. Of course, when I'm preaching like this, it seems like, you maybe start to forget that Josh is the victim, and that's a bit twisted because in the end, shouldn't it, in the end, it should not be the user's responsibility to manage their data, we feel. Shouldn't Venmo be to blame for all this? And that's why we also strongly advise Venmo to make payment notes optional. Users should not be forced to provide Venmo with seemingly innocent but highly monetizable information with every transaction they make through the app. But now we're pointing fingers at Venmo, but this story is actually bigger than Venmo, because many companies track you and track your data. Look at Google Chrome. I'm not gonna go through the whole list, but this is how Google Chrome tracks its users. This is a more widespread problem, and that is also why we would like to encourage developers to make user data private by default.
So during our challenge, we came up with the decision of how could we help Josh? How could we spread awareness of this issue? And our answer was an email campaign to raise awareness, to teach, and to put Josh, the potential Josh, at ease. And this is our draft of an email campaign and how it would work out. I'm going to read it. Subject: we know you have a foot fetish. Does your mother know? Based on the public information you shared through Venmo, we were able to find out who you are and that you purchase feet pictures. Don't be alarmed. This is an automatic email. Nothing has been stored by us. No further action will be taken by us beyond this email. This email is a part of a campaign to create awareness for the movement private by default. On Venmo, much of your transaction data is public unless you change your settings. We wanted to shock the potential person, the potential Josh in this circumstance, to be aware of it, to show them that yes, this data is public, and to scare him, be it a little bit, that he should set his settings to private. Under this email, we would show him how to set his settings to private and how he could encourage others to do the same. So, of course, we go to a coding school. We wrote a little bit of code. We wrote an open source script to be able to filter out and parse through the data set specifically for Venmo to create a tag search looking for keywords. If we were to have the time and be able to iterate upon this, and what we encourage others who want to iterate upon this to do, is to create a system in which they can, a user could search up to see what kind of data is collected by Venmo itself. Well, that's us. Again, Thijs, Diamond, myself, Griffin, and Victor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation. I really love the storytelling in this one, and the email at the end was amazing. So you have a few questions from the audience. The first is, would you say all this public information is the responsibility of Venmo or the user to make private?
Answer would be the developer. But as we know, everyone wants to make money, especially companies want to make money. So at this point in time, the answer is that it's upon the user to be able to figure out what is being shared and where they can be set to private. For example, I am an American and I use Venmo. I didn't realize that my settings were public at first. Inside the data set, I found myself paying for rent. Of course, it could have been something more inconspicuous or more extortable, but thankfully it was just rent. I would really implore that developers do set everything to private, but again, you gotta look out for yourself and take care of yourself.
The second question we got is, how can users keep data in private sites safe? So think about when you're using Google Drive or you have things in the Apple iCloud and you think they're private, but at the same time they're online. So how can you make things like that safe?
This is a more difficult question to ask. Your best bet is to always keep everything you have updated to the highest degree possible to make sure nothing's deprecated, and never share passwords between any accounts, and always keep strong passwords. Do rotate your passwords on a 3-monthly basis is recommended, but it's upon you to be able to look out for your own personal safety on the internet. The internet is a scary place, but also a very necessary place. So you just got to try your best to keep yourself safe.
We are coding students and not privacy experts.
Yes, and people really love your designs as well. So someone is asking who made the beautiful illustrations in the presentation.
Our lovely Timon.
Well done, Timon.
Thank you.
Excellent work. So thank you both for joining us in this session. I think you both teams did an amazing job. We can welcome Naomi back to the stage as we close out. But I think this session was really important to have at Mozilla because a lot of people don't realize how public their private data is. And so I think the Creepathon is a really great way of showcasing that, and the work you did, over just a few hours in uncovering all that information about people really brings awareness, to how vulnerable you can be online. So thank you so much for the work you did in the Creepathon, for joining us again today to present your work to the MozFest audience. You are awesome, and we are so happy that you were able to host this session. Thank you, CODAM. Bye.